Why do we? Another setback, but we're covering from that too. Good evening, sir. How are you? Director. I got that already.
You want to print it?
Oh, I put it.
But that's
Oh,
Where?
I got it.
Oh my goodness, I told you, put a mask on.
It's just.
I'm gonna tell my mom I saw you. It's that funny, I come all the way over here and still no folks. Lot 48, lot number. I forget the lots, but Harmony, 71 West Harmony.
How much were we paying? Oh, yeah. Already been one. Same thing. Like, what kind of protection?
So it's picture. Oh, did it? Yeah, apparently he's big into that.
I want one to put in my freezer.
You want to cut it already? You want it filleted?
Clean it and cut it up.
Oh, okay. So I have raccoons in the attic.
Oh.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's.
Yes. It must have been about 8 or 10 of them.
Found it, Bill.
Yeah, found it. Truck work. Mess. So we trapped a couple. I took them, they say you gotta bring it 5 miles away. It's not there. So that was one. I'm not doing this 9 times. My neighbor goes, what are you doing? Yes. And then invited me the next day for stew.
I know a lot of people that.
It's supposed to be very good, extremely lean and very
When I was coming up in South Jersey.
They're very picky.
Harold, do you have off any days?
Raccoons are muscular.
Tracy, I'm gonna give you a call too.
Very active. Very.
Let's do them. Yeah, a lot of people in here are kind of used to the camera coming up. Hey, how's everyone?
How are you? I'm well, how are you? I'm very good.
And looked like he was ringing. Yes, that's right.
You gonna stay here? Stay here? Okay, just because, yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what it is.
Right?
Yeah.
You just keep.
Well, yeah, then we should get rid of this chair, so I have. The chair. Oh, yeah.
That's what he did.
You control the camera. Look, we'll teach you something. Well, actually, you're not gonna go to turn your head.
It's,
This is we don't use this, right? This one?
Yeah, that's next week. Yeah, but next week. We
should not talk too much.
No one's in, right?
Not to talk too much. So we have a lot of-
No, yeah, that's the clerk.
This is just what I was proposing.
And
As you know, nobody but that was what I wanted. I talked with the guy.
Oh, sorry. You got a quorum. You want the TV to fix you? So, no, you good? No. Well, not the camera, the TV is tired. I don't want to see it. Why do you think I won't?
So we 27.
It's underneath here. What I did,
These numbers threw me off.
right, because I'm just counting how many buildable lots I was figuring in. But the church kind of here on this side. And what I was doing is straightening out the line, giving the church parking next to it. Otherwise, our lot goes easy. You know what I mean? Like, you turn another one of these here. And the church has this back here and over here. Well, that's who we are. Some of the programs that do, we're already here in Pembroke with the,
And then your use of the building, use for being. What was the use of it?
residential will be building new single family residential homes.
She's talking about selling.
3 bedrooms. Mixed income allowed,
So they're going to sell this.
yeah, for owners, not renters.
All right, good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 31, L 1975, notice of this meeting was posted on the Borough of Pennsgrove Municipal Bulletin Board designed for that purpose. Notice was also posted on the Borough of Pennsgrove website at www.pennsgrove-nj.org and was emailed to the official newspaper as provided by resolution. This April 5th, 2022 meeting is being held in person in the courtroom of Borough Hall, 1 State Street, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Additionally, this meeting is also being held via Zoom online meeting platform. Everyone please stand, say the pledge of allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart and say it in unison with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain seated. Clerk, can you
Father, as we stand before you this evening, we ask for your guidance and wisdom in all matters which we come forth before this governing body, that we always be aware of the needs of the people of this community. Grant us with the patience and the understanding to lead and direct others in the very best manner possible. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Councilman Porter,
Here.
Council President Martin,
Here.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Here.
Councilman Rambo,
Here.
Councilwoman Scarpese. Here. And Councilwoman Worley. Here. All present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. First item, February 1st, 2022, regular session minutes. May I have a motion to adopt? Motion to adopt. Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Council President Martin. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Councilman Porter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese,
Yes.
Councilwoman Worley.
Yes.
Madam President, Madam Mayor, can you do these by, all of them by consent?
Yeah, we can do that.
All affirmed, motion passes.
Thank you. The remaining minutes, February 15th, 2022 work session, March 2nd, 2022 regular session, March 15th, 2022 work session, and March 22nd, 2022 budget session. May I have a motion to adopt by consent?
Motion to adopt by consent.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Council President Martin. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Scarpese,
Yes.
Councilwoman Worley. Yes. All affirmed, motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, payment of bills and approval of bill list. May I have a motion to adopt? Motion to adopt. Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second?
Second. Second.
Thank you, Council President Martin. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Question.
Question.
Yes.
On the bill list, I see where we put in for, training for QPA. Qualified purchasing agent. When was that approved?
When was what? I don't understand your question.
It's on the bill list.
Oh. Which
It's
aspect of
also
it?
in the transitional aid that we're training the assistant treasurer to be qualified purchase.
Right. Would you like me to elaborate?
2 minutes.
Okay, yeah, so I think everyone, it's no secret that we have to improve how we do purchasing in the borough to make it more efficient. And we want to, so that's the first point. We talked about this in governance committee as well, that we have a few options for how to do it. So one of the ways is to have a purchasing agent, and we want to, the class is called, that's what the class is called. These are purchasing classes for the assistant treasurer to take.
I know, but did the governance committee or somebody approve for the person to do what that's doing? I just seen it on there and that's all I know.
Well, who's doing it? Steve and Erica, right? Who's doing it?
Eric was-
No, it'd be just me,
Just you?
yeah. But it's not gonna be anytime soon anyhow, because the first one is filled up, so.
And see, I have no problem with it, but the first time I seen it was when I seen the bill list. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, but this was discussed, first it was discussed in committee to answer that question. And second, I don't want the conversation actually to seep into like anything personnel related. But it was discussed in governance committee. And if you want a professional development plan to show the wisdom of
No, I don't want all
this, I
that. I
can
just
send it
wanted
to
to
you.
know I seen it on the bill list and I didn't know anything about it. I know we need it, I know we've been talking about it, but that's all I heard. Then
Right.
I see it on the bill list to be approved. So I just wanted to know where it came from. Nothing else was told to me.
I
That's all I'm
think the
asking.
question is, are we doing this in-house? Or are we going to contract it out? What's the best way to do it? What's the most efficient way to do it? If we're expanding someone's job, is there a salary increase involved with it? Is there the capacity in that department to absorb that? There's a lot of questions that I would think that we need a report from the governance committee on how that was analyzed.
Sure, you can feel free to assign this to the committee, but I will say on the list that you just gave, it's not either or, it's both and. So we can create our own internal, so if we can create our own leadership from within, and that starts just by taking a couple of classes. Becoming a QPA is actually fairly complicated, so it's not just taking classes.
Yes.
You have to, there are multiple steps to it, but we have to improve our purchasing. We have a CFO team that the CFO is taking classes for his CEU credits. And we also want our assistant to take classes to support making purchasing a better thing. That does not exclude us from hiring a QPA if and when necessary. But as you guys know, we would have to, if this is a part-time position, you have to have
That can be
a job
contracted.
description and stuff first, right?
Sure.
Or contracted.
I was concerned about how it was presented in the transitional aid package, because it looked as if the decision had already been made,
What decision?
that our assistant treasurer is going to be taking on that role.
No, our assistant treasurer is taking classes. That doesn't, that,
That's not how it was presented, just
okay.
FYI.
Any further questions?
No.
All right, can you do roll call?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Carpesi,
Yes.
Councilman Worley. Yes. All affirmed, motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving into introduction of resolutions for consideration by consent. We have resolution number 2022-4-64. That is a resolution authorizing the contact person for the employment practices liability attorney consultation service, Gloucester, Salem, Cumberland Counties Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. Next resolution is 2022-4-65. That is a resolution authorizing the Borough of Pensgrove tax collector to prepare and issue estimated tax bills for third quarter 2022 property taxes. Resolution 2022-4-66, that is a resolution to transfer deduction credit from 2021 to 2022. Resolution 2022-4-67, that is a resolution authorizing mailing and advertisement of 2022 tax sale notices. Next resolution, 2022-4-68, that is a resolution authorizing electronic tax sale in accordance with N.J.S.A 54:5-19.1. Also, resolution 2022-4-69, that is a resolution authorizing an application for charitable solicitation for Liberty Fire Company Number 1, Pensgrove. Also, there's a resolution 2022-4-70, that is a resolution of the mayor and borough council of the Borough of Pensgrove, County of Salem, New Jersey, authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $68,000 of special emergency notes of the Borough of Pensgrove, making certain covenants to maintain the exemption of the interest on said notes from federal income taxation, and authorizing such further actions and making such determinations as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the issuance and sale of the notes. That was a long one, everyone. We are pulling resolution 2022-4-71, which is a resolution awarding contract for technological equipment to Staples. We are pulling that resolution. So may I have a motion to adopt by consent resolutions 2022-4-64 through 2022-4-70.
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mency. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Could I just note one thing? That these resolutions were not sponsored by any committee. Most of them should have been sponsored by the Finance Committee. I'm not sure about the first one. I'm not sure who has J, but they should have a sponsor.
Noted. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk. roll call.
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese,
Yes,
Councilwoman Worley.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to first reading and introduction of ordinances. We have 2022-7, an ordinance regulating the licensure, permitting, and standards of mobile retail food truck vendors throughout the borough. May I have a motion to adopt by title only?
I do have a question regarding this before we go any further into it.
Motion first.
There's a question for a motion, so there is a discussion portion if the motion is to adopt by title is approved. So we're in motion right now.
Got you.
Is there a motion to adopt by title only?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Martin. Okay, we move into discussion. What's your question, Councilman Carter?
No, I was just wondering if this was sponsored by anybody and what exactly does it pertain to?
Yeah, because it didn't come up.
we don't have a copy of
I
it.
don't copy that.
You don't have a copy of it?
No,
I don't.
It's,
Oh, if you don't have a copy of it, we should pull
we
it.
should
then.
just table it.
Yeah, we should pull it.
Motion to
I didn't
table.
know that.
all right, I'm gonna do a motion to table. That's Councilwoman Scarpese. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Madam Mayor, can what I will tell you that though is we've had multiple requests from food vendors to be in Penns Grove. The way this happened last year is something we don't want to repeat because the food truck was on Virginia Avenue and it created a dangerous situation that Rich and I observed. And we further researched it and saw that unlike many municipalities that have an ordinance that regulated, it was too much discretion that was given to the administration.
And fees and things like that.
We didn't
We don't have a
have
copy of it.
right, we didn't even have fees. So this is, and I didn't realize that you didn't have it. But this is an important ordinance for the few food trucks that want to be here, so they're not in like no man's land. And we are likely going to try to work out using the spot on Virginia Avenue that the borough owns across the street from where they used to be, where the concrete slab is, as a temporary home this year for food trucks. If it's possible, we're not 100% sure if it's doable because of the way the ground and stuff is there, but if it's doable.
There may be an issue with using public property for private enterprise.
Well, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but that has been the tradition here in Penns Grove anyway, that they were.
I know that it's an issue with using the school ground for private fundraising. I don't know if that's a state law or if it's something.
Well, the
specific to
borough
the
is,
school.
we're always free to lease, government's lease land to my favorite restaurant in Pennsauken is owned by Camden, the space is owned by Camden County, and then the restaurant pays rent to the county.
We have to look at how that.
Well, it's mentioned in the ordinance, Mr. Tarver has already reviewed. But you don't know that you haven't seen it, so you have to get it.
Yeah, really.
Which is why it should be tabled to the next meeting,
Right.
which I think is what we recommend.
Any further questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese,
Yes.
Councilwoman Worley.
Yes.
All affirm. Motion passes.
All right, moving into second reading of public hearings and adoption ordinances. We have ordinance number 2022-2, that is an ordinance creating the Department of Public Safety, the Division of Police, the Division of Fire, and the Division of Emergency Management, and the title and position of Public Safety Director. We are going into public comment first, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're open for public comment if anyone from the public has a question regarding this ordinance of creating the Public Safety Director position. Division of Department of Public Safety. If you have a question, you have to step up to the mic and state your name and address.
Question about the emergency. I thought we already had a public safety director and now.
What was your name, sir?
Louis Pasquale, Delaware Drive.
We have a police director.
Oh, we have a police director? I thought he was a public safety director.
No.
What does this public safety director do?
The public safety director is the director that oversees the emergency management departments. Those would be police, the Division of Police, the Division of Fire, the emergency services department as well, which would probably include your ambulance and otherwise. So basically, the public safety director would be the umbrella and point administrative person over those particular.
All three agencies.
Yes.
Administrative, meaning budgeting, things like that, not actual work.
It's just a.
Well, I mean, there is some actual work by statute, but what the councilman is saying is absolutely correct. What we have had in the past is we've had these different entities all operating separately without an individual point person, and they're all
Right.
Public safety
Understand.
related entities. And sometimes there are situations that occur where all three of those departments will need to work together. And that's why a public safety director is a good fit for this borough.
Is this supposed to be a volunteer job or a job that's going to go up on the web to be to have an employee or?
The public safety director would be an employment position.
How much are the wages?
I believe that
common?
we have not created the full scope of the position as to what the wage actually would be. So we have to wait until we actually create the position first. And then we attach a wage schedule to that in the salary ordinance.
And the monitor has agreed to this?
Yeah,
Or
the monitor,
recommended?
this is actually a suggestion from a number of different parties. The monitor is very much in favor of this. You know, it's a progressive move. Most municipalities now not only have one, but because of the statutory requirements of emergency services, find it to be helpful to have one.
Anyone else from the public? Going once, going twice. May I have a motion to adopt? Motion to adopt. Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second?
Second.
Council President Martin. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mitzi,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Carpesi,
Yes,
Councilwoman Worley.
Yes.
All affirmed, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Next reading. Ordinance 2022-3, that is an ordinance amending section 85 of the code of the Borough of Penns Grove. And what that ordinance specifically is increasing the zoning application fee from $10 to $25. Anyone from the public have a comment regarding this ordinance? Okay. Motion to adopt. Is there a comment from the public?
No, I was about to say motion to adopt.
Okay, Councilman Carter made the motion. May I have a second, please? Second. Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Minty,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilman Scarpese,
Yes.
and Councilman Worley.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next ordinance, 2022-4, that is an ordinance amending section 173-4, licensing fees for retail liquor licenses. Anyone from the public have a comment regarding this ordinance?
Greg Martin, Spruce Street. Well, what is the licensing fee? And I got a question about this. I don't even know if this is the proper time to answer. At one time, we had several liquor establishments. I think now we only have like 3. What happens when the license goes stagnant? Is that something that can be answered now or no?
It's, first I'll say that that's your second question. It doesn't have an impact on this ordinance, but it bears an answer. There are different types of licenses first. Second, in a municipality that's 5,000 or less people, the state mandates that it has no more than 2 liquor licenses. But if you had a liquor license before that statute was created, then you got to get your liquor license, which is why Pennsboro had more than the maximum set by statute.
And just so you know, the current census of Pennsboro was 4,698 persons.
I'm going to tell you in a second, I'll tell you what the fee went up to. This is a statutory thing, and the price is set by statute, so it's not unlike the previous one where we got to decide as a government $25. This one is set by a formula that can only go up a certain amount.
So only go up 20% at any given time.
So the part of your question that you asked, if you had an establishment previously, so a lot of establishments, as we know, have closed down now. So what happened to those? They just like disintegrate? So now how many?
In terms of the licenses?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I don't know what class license they have, anything else like that, whether it's a pocket license, whether it's
There's one pocket.
retail or whatever it is. So some of those licenses remain dormant. Some of them can be reactivated under certain circumstances, and some of them just die. So I'd have to know.
Okay.
There's one pocket license.
So right now, we just got 2 liquor licenses in town that's floating around? I mean, as far as Inky's and Andy's and Colonial?
I think we should confirm that, because I thought we voted on something last year or year before.
Rotten Rouse has a pocket license. And then the Elks
I thought
has
it was
one.
more than a couple. I
Do you
thought.
see it? I don't see that.
But we can get an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I see it?
Yeah, I don't see the,
Any more questions from the
I don't see
public?
the file.
All right, may I have a motion to adopt? Councilman Worthy, may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. Oh, is that Councilman Rambo? Or Carter?
Carter.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Carter. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Minty,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilman Scarpese,
Yes.
Councilman Worley.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next ordinance, that's 2022-5. That is an ordinance to convey Block 7, Lot 91, AKA 444 Park Avenue in the Borough of Pennsboro, to Habitat for Humanity, a duly incorporated nonprofit organization for the purpose of building or rehabilitating said property for resale. We are open to public comment. Anyone from the public have a comment or question regarding this ordinance? Okay. May I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to
Motion to
adopt.
adopt.
And I'd like to sponsor this too.
Thank you, Councilwoman Scarpese. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Council President Martin. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Minty,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilman Councilwoman Scarpese,
Yes.
and Councilman Worley.
Yes.
All affirmed, motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Ordinance 2022-6, that is calendar year 2022 model. Ordinance. Hello. 2022-6, calendar year 2022, model ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, N.J.S.A. 40A:4-45.14. This ordinance is open for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wants to make a comment or have a question? Please step to the microphone, sir. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Name is Ron Giordano, 7 Sac Avenue. If I understand this ordinance to be correct, this means that you're going above the state limit for a budget. You're going over that amount for a cap, which means you'll be going over and above what taxpayers would expect to pay in an increase. Am I correct? Can you explain that, please?
This is for a municipality that gets transitional aid. This is considered pro forma, meaning this is just, there is a, look at this you can look at it as two ceilings. The first ceiling is real short. If you want to spend money over that to get to the second ceiling, all that says is that council has to approve for the CFO to spend a certain amount of money from the budget. It doesn't expand the budget, it's no cost for taxpayers. It just authorizes, you see the statute here, this is just something that boroughs that get contra transitional aid, this is something that council has to vote on. This is a vote that happens really every year, right after the budget is approved by council.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion to adopt, please?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second? Thank you, Councilwoman Mency. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Council President Martin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilman Scarpese,
Yes.
Councilman Worley. Yes. Our motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports. First up, buildings and grounds, Councilwoman Worley.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have a question for Mr. Brown. Do we have any updates on the demolition?
Yes, we do. Two things. In 2020, I believe it was 20, in 2020, council, I guess the word might be vacated. So the properties are on the original demolition list. If you go into the tax record, it's listed as being owned by a company called Balfour. In 2020, I don't know, I mean, the mayor would know better than me because she was here and I wasn't, but in 2020, somebody discovered that this company that won these properties was really the worst looking properties in Penn Road. The person that won that, their LLC wasn't legit. It wasn't a certified Jersey business. And that council voted to, this was why it was okay for me to say this out loud in a public meeting, council voted to cancel that those bids on those properties. So I'm gonna blame Rich for a second. So Rich is looking at the property and says, Sean, yeah, the borough owns these. Like, cool, great. I believe Rich. Then I look at the tax, and then you look on the tax record, which we use, it says that this other company still owns it. So there's something that we're gonna have to do to trigger correcting a record of the ownership of these buildings that were on the demolition list. Because in the borough owning it and vacating that bid, we do have a right to demolish those properties. Mr. Tarver wrote a legal opinion on the status of the demolition thing. So I say all that to say, we're going to internally, we're going to have a conversation to figure out if we're going to stick with the original list and bids, or if we're going to put it out for bid again.
And when we get a letter indicating the changes you guys are.
Yeah. I mean, more than that, I mean, who's your building? I'm like, who's building the ground? Yeah. Between you and Mr. Rambo with housing and zoning. Look, you know, if we are able to knock down the worst looking properties in Penns Grove and take them to the next level, you know, we want to do that. If unfortunately information does not flow in a sequential stream, information comes kind of all over the place. Sometimes things don't match, and it takes us a while to figure out, especially when we got a whole bunch of things going on. But our goal is to knock these worst looking properties down, the ones that we can, obviously doing so in a legal way. And we want everything to match up, right? We want the properties on the list, the specs that go out to the bidders. We want everything to be right. I'm going to have a conversation might not do it until next week, but I'm gonna have the conversation with Sean Smith, our engineer, Mr. Tarver, a few other people internally. Then I want to update the committees on what our next step is going to be, because a mistake was definitely made.
So what we are going to do, new bids.
It's so if it's rock solid that the borough owns these properties, and that resolution was enough to do that. And because what we don't want this company coming at us saying, hey, you knocked down buildings that we still own, even though we already passed the council resolution in 2020 saying that the borough reclaimed those properties. Does this make sense?
That last part, no.
Okay.
Are you paying taxes on it?
No.
I'm on buildings and grounds too. I want to just go through the history of this. Mr. Smith had given us a written recommendation that we went out to rebid because he thought that prices came in higher than he estimated. But then he gave us a verbal recommendation that we accept the bid. I would just like to see, whatever we do, that we have a written recommendation that's the final recommendation. Either that we're going to go with the bids that have there was only one bid. I don't really understand that because I know multiple companies came out. So either we rebid because the bids came in higher than he expected, or that he reconsiders that the one bid was sufficient. I'd like to have that in writing from Mr. Smith. I don't know if he's doing.
But that sounds good, and that absolutely will happen. But don't forget that the ownership was the
ownership is one thing. I know that there was multiple times that the list was revised and that different specs went out. That's one issue. But the other issue is that when we vote, I'd like to vote on not just a verbal recommendation, but a written recommendation.
Well, I think based off the past and how this happened, I think everybody wants to be confident that everything's being done correctly from from start to thank you. Right,
Like maybe a little history, and then
Yes.
this is the conclusion.
Absolutely.
Because I know we already voted to accept the bid.
You can help me, Mr. Target, just let me hang out here.
The bottom line to the process is that council wants to be assured of what properties are going to be actually demolished and under what procedure. Number one, the committee structure is the way that first occurred, but number two, it should be done by strict resolution before this body so that you get the chance to know exactly which properties are going to be the ones that are demolished before it's done. So given the fact that we've had some trepidation in the history of this, I would recommend that as we move forward, and I will make sure that this is done, that we have a resolution that's placed before council specifically identifying the properties that need to be demolished. Basically being certified by the engineer that those are properties that are going to be demolished. And that's what's required by the statute anyway. The statute requires that there be this process. I did write an opinion to the business administrator regarding this, and there was an entire process that we're required to follow on Title 40A 45-2.3. So we'll make sure that the council gets the information.
Can we
Can you
do
give me a
something?
timetable?
I think because for several reasons, there's no reason why we couldn't have this to you at the next council, the list as a resolution.
Okay.
Should we go through the committee first?
Yes, yeah, I mean, as long as, as long as you guys have scheduled meetings between now and then, sure.
Okay, and the other thing, can we do something to undo the resolution that we already passed awarding the bid?
Well, that would be part of the, I'm sorry, that can be part of the resolution that we before council.
I wasn't here, but I was
So that's clear that
uncomfortable.
it's rescinded.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable with what we did at the last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. So I do have one more thing, if you don't mind. Mr. Brown, you sent me this information from Jenny.
Yes.
From what I understand, from what I can read, that these were violations from last year. I'm is that-
Okay, I know what you're saying. Okay, so I'll just explain this as a narrative. So first, we had a lot of inspections this year from the fire inspector twice. I thought there was somebody else, but in this case, this is our insurance company saying they inspect our buildings because to insure us, they want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to have the buildings in the right condition. The longest and oldest list is from Barbara Avenue Park. So what you see repeats of those things because the demolition, not the demolition, the work on the park is about to start in a couple of weeks. So those things are going to take care of themselves. But what we also see is that not every inspector is looking at the same things. And that several of these buildings have issues. And what the fire inspector looks at and what the GIF inspector look at don't necessarily match. So all I can do is, and you're gonna be my thought partner on this, all we can do is take this list, see what's already going to be addressed, see what we need to fix immediately, see what the cost is, make sure we have the money in the budget that represents it, and do our best to address those issues that are identified in the report.
So is there any money in the budget from last year?
I don't remember. Let me answer you this way. If we could pay for everything we paid for last year, it's way less this year. We already know the park is taken care of. The roof was a big deal because the shingles were falling to the neighbor's yard and things like that. That list that you have before you is going to is well within our budget for buildings and grounds. And what I'll do is I'll get the budget update, and then at the committee meeting, I can tell you exactly how much money you're working with, including the surplus from 2021 and the budget line item from 2022, which really hasn't been touched yet, because I think CML was paid for with last year's money, right? 2021, yeah. The timeline is really as this is the way it works in this, when we have the capacity that we have, the timeline is the amount of time it takes to get the quote from a vendor, and then it's the vendors, once selected is that vendor's timeline of how quickly the work can get done. Now, this isn't as much as urgent as the fire inspector was, because that's a little bit different. These are strong suggestions, and these are strong suggestions we're going to obviously follow.
And I think last but not least, out on the Riverwalk, ordering the flags. Mr. Rambo, you can probably help me out with this one, but what kind of lights do I need?
I know, yeah. It's so what I think we should.
I said, I told him. He said, in order to keep the American flag, when it's up, it's supposed to be lit.
Is it underneath or?
No, they said underneath. So for the Riverwalk, it needs to be a solar put on the pole, because if you put it in the ground, you might as well just give it to them. Yeah, I ain't gonna come take it.
What I hope to do, if with time permitting, just like we did at the streets department, is do a walkthrough. I'm gonna admit that this is not a strong suit
And
of
I
mine.
did do one, I did it on Saturday.
Okay, because I know the thing with the flag is whatever fabric we've gotten in the past is not working.
I
It's,
got heavy duty.
oh, okay,
Uh-huh,
okay.
I do one.
And so it's made for that, because you know, at the river, the wind, it
Oh,
looks bad
yes.
and it needs to be changed.
Yes.
And we've gone through like probably 10 flags.
Exactly, no,
Yeah.
we don't wanna do that.
Who's changed? Is it Carter's Point that did it or
Change what?
the flag?
No, Mr. Rambo's going to.
Yeah, Councilman Randall.
I changed it.
Multiple.
That flag that's up there right now was donated by my girlfriend. And the first flag was purchased by,
It's just nuclear, it's just something nuclear happening, guys, I'm gonna worry about. That's what it says.
I was a test.
Just get the test. We announced it earlier today.
All right, so,
What's going on?
All right.
so we'll like what we need with that, okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you so much, Meg, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, moving to general government, Council President Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and everyone who's under the sound of my voice. Before I get started, I would like to just take this time to say that my prayers go out to Bruce Willis and his family. You know, we know he's going through a difficult time right now, and I just wish him well. So our general government, our last meeting was March 8th, and all committee members were in attendance. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my notes. Anyway, all were in attendance. So what we discussed were a procurement card, and that's to speed up our ability to purchase, and also an easy pass for the borough. And both of those are in motion right now. Also, and lastly, we spoke about cross-training, and that's just cross-training some of the borough employees in the event that someone falls ill or is away or something comes up unexpected, we're able to still move forward with the day-to-day, the day-to-day task. So we did, as far as that's concerned, we just kind of discussed that and we'll explore that further. And that's all I have. Thank you.
One question.
Sure.
Your assistant,
Yes.
where are we at with that?
The job,
Let's say borough assistant.
the job is posted. It needs to be posted more because I haven't gotten a lot of, let me first say, so the job is full-time now. It was part-time. State monitor looked at our budget and we have enough money to surplus. And it's going to be helping the clerk's office a little bit, helping the finance office a lot, and then helping my office side a lot as well. So it's posted. We are hoping to get a person that's bilingual because this is a need that the borough has. And as you talked about at the last governance committee meeting, when I had one, two, or three good finalists, I'll bring that person to the committee as well, so that you guys can interview the person too, just like you do with police.
Maria wasn't suitable?
So let's just talk about that one-on-one.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Gotcha, will do.
that's not her name.
Maria.
No, that's not her name.
That's fine. That's a one. Something else.
It's close, but I'll tell you what it was later.
Thank you.
All right.
Is that it, Council President Martin?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving to housing and zoning, Councilman Rambo.
Hey, evening, Mayor, Council, public. Councilwoman Worley, when we got, I didn't get a chance to comment on the light thing because we got that Homer Simpson alert. But on the lights, looking at the monument, the light poles to the left and the right, we were talking about putting some type of LED projection light or spotlight on those light poles aiming at the flags, one from each side. and that's going to be more than enough adequate light. I found that, I'm sure anybody will know, if you look at a light pole that has lights on the pole itself, they really don't illuminate that flag the way it needs to be. So, I mean, we can decide on it later. I know you want to get that moving and have that waterfront up and going, but there's plenty of options there. Of course, it requires a contracted electrician, so we'll get all that in order. Does that answer your question?
Yes, do you have one in mind?
An electrician?
Yes, yes, sir.
I do not. We do have like
Okay,
okay. As far as my report tonight, I just have a couple of things. Finally, we're caught up on our CO request. We were so far behind just because we didn't have anyone, but everything's looking really good with that. So we're pretty well caught up. Another thing we're trying to do is we need to reach out to these landlords, and we're trying to encourage them that they need to fill out a landlord registration form that will go on file in the borough. And this pretty much what it does is it just it's a quick form. It's going to tell who owns the house and what the tenant's name is in there. Kind of similar to the CO, but this is just something instead of a CO that we'll have on file. No tenants that we're going to be adamant about this. In the past, we've allowed tenants to move into homes before they had a CO. If something happens, somebody's in trouble. These rental properties need to absolutely have a CO before they move in. Otherwise, if they have a fire or there's no fire extinguishers, no smoke detectors. I mean, we've seen all over the news all these tragic fires killing people. We can't allow this to happen. So we need to be on top of this. 10-day notices. They've been going out like crazy. Trash. People that's putting trash out too soon. Trash without stickers. Carney's Point. They'll leave it there. They will just leave it on the curb. They're not fooling around. So we also don't want to fool around either. We need to bite this in the butt. Cars, abandoned cars, illegal cars. There's cars parked on the streets with no tags on them. It's just there's so much. It's overwhelming because this has been allowed to go rampant for so long, and we're just putting a lasso on it now. So I'm sure within by the time we get to May, we're going to have it a little bit under control. Next month, we're going to be on top of, and I know Councilwoman Mitzi was all over this last year, numbers on houses. It's a must. There's an ordinance, 203-5. Also, it's needed for 911. Like if you put in a 911 call, and how are they going to find you? Yeah, I mean, it's just so, it's bad. So we need to be on top of that. Let me see what else we have here. The auction. We've had, the borough pulled a couple of the auction places, I think 5. And there's a couple people that rescinded their bid because of one was a burned out house they didn't know about. Another one, there's several reasons, but there's a couple of those. But even with those, if we go to settlement on all the places, we'll still be at $1.3 million. Not bad at all. We do not have closing dates yet for them. But mayor and council will be brought up to date when that is going to happen. I'm sure they're going to be all different dates. There's no way they all can be the same date for sure. But if they all close, we're going to be good. And this gets them back on the rolls, and let's start bringing some money in this borough. And that's about all I have.
Question on, do we have anything in our documents that say that they have to bring them up to code?
No, that's obvious. That's,
Within a certain amount of time?
no, that's just obvious that they have to, whatever they do has to be consistent with code. The important thing for us, and is that we discussed along with this, is in doing this thing properly, we have to have enforcement mechanisms that are strong. That's, I think, Councilman Rambo was talking about, what the business administrator's been talking about as well. You know, just like every other municipality, we shouldn't have to tell people that, you know, you may trip if there's a raised in the sidewalk. It's something that they should know automatically. You should have to follow code. And if you don't follow code, we need to hold them accountable and responsible. So that's what we're going to make sure that we do.
Well, obviously, some of these structures are in bad shape, so we have to give them a certain amount of time before we start the enforcement procedure.
I think we give them the amount of time that the statute requires us to give with the procedure. And that's why we're talking about the procedure, because the procedure actually has timetables built in and has safeguards for them as well. You know, they have the right to have hearings on certain things. They have all these different procedural rights. We just have to step up our game. You know, and that requires basically, you know, bringing personnel up to.
I remember when we talked about this before, one of the things we said, that it was gonna be written in there, that they would have a year to fix it up, bring it up to code, it would come back to us. And you said when they did the contract, it would be written in there. Now, to sit and say that they should know this, they should know if you shoot somebody with a gun and kill them, you're going to jail too, but they do it.
Ms. Missy, I hope Mr. Tucker, I just want to clarify. The 1 year is for if it's a structure, which there are, I believe, 16 that we have bids on. It's 1 year to have an occupant in that structure. But bringing it up to code, that's immediate. So once you go to closing and that person owns the property, they're gonna have a very short period of time.
But that's not what we said. We gave them 1 year because we knew.
No, but one year to get somebody living in there. I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is, if the house has high grass and whatever, they're responsible for cutting that grass.
We understand that.
And
I'm talking about
But
bringing
immediately
it up to code, because you can't say that's normal. There is houses around here, like the person that bought the house that was burnt out. Evidently, they didn't see it. So what have we been doing for years? From New York to Tyrone Avenue. There's a house in Tyrone, the lady lives in Florida, California. She ain't seen that house in years. She tried to put a roof on it.
I've sent her pictures. But
Okay, well, the other year she tried to put a roof on it. So to say they know that, no, we wouldn't have these abandoned properties looking like this if they did what they were supposed to do.
The reason why we have.
I'm just trying to, when you say up to code, the code is grass has to be a certain height.
Right.
I'm talking about the building. I'm talking about the building.
Well, that's a separate.
Well, that's why something should have put in writing that you're gonna buy this property from the Borough of Pennsboro. You're not gonna let it sit there and just use it for taxes.
Isn't that being worked on?
But that is code. That's what code is. You can't, in other words, if I buy a house and it's in disrepair, I am immediately responsible at that point for making sure that that house gets up to repair. We cite people, that's what they do. They have to begin construction as per our own ordinances. They've got to start construction. If they're not starting construction, if they're not doing it, then they get cited. If they don't bring it up in a certain amount of time, they get cited. They're gonna have to basically comply with what our ordinances say.
But there's nothing that prohibits us from summarizing what our codes are, letting people know that they have the responsibility of putting that,
But that's
and including that in
not what he
closing.
said. He didn't say up the code before. He said when they signed the contract, it would be in there. So that's what I'm looking for, would it be in there that from the time you do this, this needs to be done before it comes back to us. Now come up with this code thing.
You're talking about the reverter. Yes. You're talking, and here was the problem with the reverter. Problem with the reverter is that the codes that we talked about already cover that things have to be up within a certain amount of time. And in my discussions with the auctioneers, having the reverter in, which would have to contain so many different provisions, would stop people from actually making the property purchase. So what we said is what needs to happen is that we have to be on top of the enforcement of these properties. We have to hold them accountable as the code says, so that when they purchase these properties, if the properties are in disrepair, they are as responsible as the person who had it before them, just as if it was their property from the very beginning of bringing things up to code.
So I just don't understand why so many things have been said by this auctioneer that we missed, that we didn't hear about. Because for me, this is the first time, I know Mr. Brown has once before something that the auctioneer said about if we did homeowners, how it would limit the process. But what you're saying now, this is the first time we're hearing this. So now we got a bunch of people buying houses again. And are we gonna have the same thing we already had here before?
Well, you won't, because we're gonna have enforcement now.
We can't even hire the two people I've been trying to get hired for 2 years. You can't even pay for themselves. We can't even get them hired. And all of a sudden, we're gonna hire people that's gonna enforce these things.
That's what we have to do. That's what we've been basically saying from the very beginning, that there has to be some very real enforcement. Now, the good thing is that, you know, we're talking about what funds are going to be used for, and how those funds are going to be distributed. Part of what needs to happen is we have to reinvest in this borough in making sure that we have the infrastructure to hold people accountable. And that's just the only way that it can be done anyway.
Including the abandoned property ordinance.
Right, and
So if you don't have
exactly
somebody in
the
there,
abandoned property.
that's what, $500,
Right.
and it goes to 1,000 and so on and so forth.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that Councilwoman Mency has been harping on for a while, the abandoned properties.
I just don't wanna see, I see the money, it's fine, it's great, it's wonderful. But when you see it on paper, then you ride through town and we still got a mess. A mess.
I agree, that there's no way that should happen.
No, because it's already right there, the one guy bought the property, didn't know it was burnt out. And that's what they've been buying it just for write-offs, don't know what they're buying. Especially the money they spend on these places. Like they probably won't, hopefully they got sense enough because they spend a lot of money on these places. But we don't want to repeat of what we already had.
Let me give you a scenario kind of how this should be dealt with, and this is what we've discussed already through the demolition process. That house that you're talking about, the one that's burnt out, number one, we should have been doing this before. But if someone is there with a property that's burnt out, the zoning official, code official the zoning official has a responsibility as the construction official under the statute of saying this is not habitable. They then have a process that they go through where they cite it as uninhabitable. They go through a hearing within a certain amount of days. If that is not done, then we have the opportunity to be able to demolish the property ourselves. And that's what we have to start doing. We've been lax in that.
Well, we have an ordinance, I guess that's the same thing you're talking about, the fire ordinance, where we have that if it catches on fire, I think I'm saying this right, the insurance company will hold so much of their money in case they scoot off and we get so much.
Yeah, I'm talking about demolition properties.
Towards the demolition of it, which needs to be enforced too. So I'm just worried about the.
Well, that's why I've been writing these opinions and giving them over to the business administrator, and he's been meeting with the zoning officer. You know, we're committed to making sure that we do something different this time.
And that, and Councilwoman Minty, that's why it's important, and I've said this before, that this is where council comes in. You guys are doing the ordinances. You've got lots of ordinances that were passed years ago. They just don't work for our situation now, for where we're trying to go. So it would be great if council could start reviewing, you know, when you see problems in the town, you pull those ordinances and start reviewing, like you've done before, compare it to
That's
other
how we got the
towns.
fire one,
And then
'cause I
make your
asked, was there
recommendation,
one?
bring it to the committee, make your recommendation so that we can get together and tighten up our ordinances. And then once we tighten them up, then we enforce them. And then whatever we need to do to enforce them, if that's, you know, bringing in extra staff, you know, whatever that process looks like, having to get extra money, then we go to the state. The state knows all of our challenges. So they're more apt to approve certain things for us and give us the extra money to make those things happen, to be able to enforce those ordinances. So, you know, that's what we need to do so that we don't have to ride around town and look at all the existing issues that we've had for a long time. We have to tighten up our ordinances, and then we have to enforce them, because what's happened in the past is you come to a meeting, you pass an ordinance, and then there's no follow through, and then it just falls and it's dead. And then you still have all the issues around town. So that's what we're trying to change.
Because the abandoned property, I fought for that for too long. We got it in. I don't know if it's being done now or not, because it should be easier to do now since we sold a lot of the other properties. Now we know which ones aren't ours and that are abandoned. And you don't want to lose out on that money, because last year we put in a couple of them. Well, this year they owe us $1,000. Next year they owe us $1,500. They want to leave them abandoned, we're gonna keep taking their money. And then you can take that money from there and clean off those properties and board them up and make it look a little better. But we gotta get the money in there somehow. You gotta have somebody doing it. I don't know if they told the zoning person or if that's a part of her job or what we did with that, but that one does not need to go by the wayside.
But we're gonna make sure that those things get followed. One of the things that Mr. Brown was talking about, I think the reason why he's been harping on the computer issues and updating the infrastructure, the computers and everything else like that, is once we get those things together, we will be able to much more efficiently to identify these issues, to make sure they're charted properly, make sure notices go out properly once we get automated. And I see that coming. I think we'll be successful with it.
I just want you to know, I hear you. I think you're right on. Learning lessons from the past, both between before I was here and now that I'm here, and even in talking about the demolition. I think that we need make sure we have a written policy strategy. It should be discussed in committee. It doesn't necessarily need to be discussed in an open meeting, but certainly discussed in committee. If you have, what do you want? All right, so. So I'll make sure that as this develops, that everybody's up to speed on what it is, because we want to make sure we get this right. Because we have a great opportunity right now. We have attention of certain people, but we also know that we have some growth areas that we have to focus on to make these things happen.
So that means, you gotta hurry up and hire somebody, because when they make their settlement, they want to start working.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw it. Me and Mr. Brown have a comment thing. We watched 60 Minutes and stuff like that. And the other day, they
Wait, did we
said
talk
that-
about this?
Yeah, we talked about 60 Minutes
yeah.
once before, but this was the other day. The lady said she wanted to go get a house. And every time she wanted to go get a house, she was outbid by $100,000. So there's a housing shortage.
Yes.
So we wonder why
That's
they
right.
paid so much money, because they know people is looking for houses. So we don't want to not be able to be where they need to be, to give them what they need and tell them. Some of them probably want to rent it because rent is high too, but there's a housing shortage and they know it. So we need to be prepared, so when they do their settlement and start, we can keep it going.
All right, is that it, Councilman Rambo?
That is.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to recreation, Councilman Carter.
Good evening, council, mayor, and public. Give me 1 second. I do have a registered vital support from the January and February.
We're having trouble
I'll
hearing
start
you,
with
Councilman
that.
Carter.
Y'all might, because I'm at work. Hopefully y'all can hear me a little better. My service isn't the greatest at work.
Wherever you're standing, whatever position you're in, stay right there.
No
We can hear
problem.
you.
All right. I have a registrar's vital statistics report from December, January, and February. In December, we had 17 certificate copies of death, 17 certified copies of deaths, 3 certified copies of marriage, 1 certified copy of birth, interest, was 12 cents, and then we had a deposit error to the clerk's account. Total to the treasurer of the month of December was $1,288. In January, we had 29 certified copies of death, 2 certified copies of marriage. Interest was 1 cent. Total for $1,740.01. And in February, we had 15 death certificates, 5 marriage certificates, 1 marriage license, and interest was 6 cents for a total of $1,153.06. Other than that, the only thing I did want to speak on was we had a successful food drive last month. Thank you for everybody that came out and helped that day. It was a great success. Thank you to mayor and council for everybody who showed up. The mayor was honored that day as well. But it was a good event. We gave out tons of food. It was tons of people that came out there and was able to get food, including, members of council. I took some stuff home myself to make for my salads. But outside of that, the only other thing I did want to comment on, we are going to have a Easter egg hunt this month on April 16th. Time is still being discussed. I will have that out ASAP, but it is the 16th of this month, which is a Saturday. We'll have an Easter egg hunt. We are looking at doing some face painting that day, and possibly having giving out Easter baskets with candy in them also. But that will be the 16th of April. Time to be discussed still. Other than that, I can't think of anything else that I wanted to report, and that was all.
What's the location
Thank
at?
The location, we are going to do it at, right now, we're currently saying we're going to do it at it's either going to be Borough Avenue Park or at the River.
Barbara Avenue. It's gonna be at Barbara.
Barbara Avenue Park. Okay. At Barbara Avenue Park. If anybody wants to help put any baskets together, we're more than likely be doing that Friday, the 15th, the day before. Outside of that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. Moving on to Public Works, Streets and Roads, Councilwoman Scarpese, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, we had some miscommunication and we did not have our meeting on the contract with Carney's Point this week. We've scheduled it for after Easter to go over our proposals and with Carney's Point. I have a couple questions though. We have 3 bids for the work at the fire hall and the ambulance hall for replacing the gutters. I was wondering, when are we going to award that contract? Do you know? Mr. Smith sent us 3 proposals.
Mr. Smith and I have a disagreement on how to proceed. Can we talk about this in the next Public Works Committee meeting?
Yeah, I guess, that's fine. And then there's some emergency work that has to be done at the pumps. Yeah, I have a quote of $11,000. Can we get that done?
Well, it's more than a quote. That PO was issued to municipal maintenance.
Do you know when the work is going to start?
They said they got it, and I talked to the guy last week. They had to order it, and then they had to do the labor. So they anticipate that work getting done in late May, early June.
There's a delay on parts.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we're lined up with, because you also have a labor shortage, so we're just in line for that time period to get the work done.
I mean, we're in the rainy season now.
I know.
And then there's some work that has to be done on fencing that the whole section needs to be fenced in. So we have to get quotes on that. I don't think so. Probably not go over the threshold. I was in touch with the people at the mosquito commission were on their calendar, but I guess the weather is holding them up some. So we're scheduled to get our ditches cleaned either before April, then they go into mosquito season, and then they start up in the fall. So as of this point, I don't know if we're gonna be in the spring or the fall, because we're scheduled, but it depends on how far they get. They're doing some work on DuPont Road and Carney's Point. We're scheduled after that. And I did have a question about the fire marshal report. Do we clear all those issues?
We cleared most of the issues. What is it? Is it 100% now?
No, not
Did we get an
100%.
extension?
Yes,
I know, because I know we had to order the door. I'm sure they.
No, that's already installed.
the big stuff's
Big
done.
stuff.
Yeah, the big stuff is done. Yeah.
Do you know what's open still?
It's like a battery.
We just replaced it, a light, just replaced it. And then because the hall is gonna be used for voting, there needs to be 2 means of egress. So the doors have to be either reversed to swing a different direction, or they have to be removed. And Fire Chief Adams said that for that particular section of the building, they could be removed.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's good.
so that saves, that's probably
Yeah, that's-
$1,500 right there.
That's good.
But it's the little stuff like that. Fire extinguishers that have to get updated.
Okay, so we just have to award the thing on the gutters. We gotta clear that issue, whatever it is. Okay, that's all for my report.
Thank you. Moving to public safety, Councilwoman Mency.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our public safety meeting. I don't remember. Was it last week? I know we had 2. We interviewed 2 new candidates, and police candidates. And they're currently doing background checks. I don't know if I'm allowed to say I was excited about one, because I don't want anybody to think I knew him, because I didn't. Just when you hear his qualifications, where we can get help at, you'll be excited too. Hopefully he makes it. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, moving to departmental reports. First up, business administrative report.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm just going to give just a real quick update on assortment of things going on that I think everybody will be glad to hear. The first thing is 2 weeks ago, the cannabis, I'll just breaking news. Oh yeah, no one knows this yet. Okay. 2 weeks ago, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission approved its first set of conditional licensing. One of those is an applicant that applied for Penn's Grove, One Faith Wellness. One Faith Wellness already purchased property down the street from here on Main Street. I talked to them earlier today, and when you open the CRC's approval list, it just has the name of the company. So I got nervous because I was hoping they weren't shopping around, because some people got like 4 letters of support in different municipalities. But we're attracted to them, and thank God they like us too. So it's a good old fashioned marriage now between Penn's Grove and this first company. What that means, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Tarver, is that in the upcoming meetings, we have to proceed with our ordinances to regulate like times of operation and things like that. This is a big deal. This is the first one. I also checked up on some of the other applicants, and they are in process of submitting their applications to CRC. We want them to be successful with this because we want them to be here. We want them to purchase property. We want them to pay taxes. We want their 2%, and we want their spur of economic development. So as these applications get approved, I can update everybody on what's going on with that. Next.
Do you have the address, and do you have what their license was for?
Yeah. Let me answer you in the end so I can just look it up, okay? Just can you remind me if I forget? Okay. Wait, what was your second question? You said the address?
And what they intended to do.
Oh, okay, they're okay.
Type of.
Yeah. I'll tell you in a second. The website we updated, Mr. Dodge, we updated the housing and zoning section of the website because me and a few other people here, we're getting, really, Mandy, Rich, myself, we get calls on basic stuff, and we want to refer people to the website. So the housing and zoning website was updated today, and it has things like table of use. That's a big question that we get, like, what can we build here? What can we build there? People that participate in auction wanted to know these things. So we're just putting information that's already, it might have already been on the website, but it's all now on the housing and zoning page. So please check it out. You'll see some updates. We're gonna continue to update it so the public has access to information. We've had several questions for people who could not afford to buy the non-conforming lot that is adjacent to their property. And there's a process that will be created, and we'll update the housing committee and council on that in the future. You already talked about that issue. We have a few jobs that will be posted, that will be shared on Indeed, on Facebook, League of Municipalities, and the borough website. Clean Communities is the program where organizations can get a small stipend of $250 to clean a community, as the name suggests. That process will be open really soon, so for people to schedule their dates to do it. And I hope everybody participates, just as they did last year under the leadership of Ms. Scarpese, and cleans, it makes Pennsboro look better. There have been several questions that people have had about us getting a dumpster and having a day for people to throw their trash in. There are different opinions on that. We're going to flesh that idea out and see what we can get to in order to clean this stuff up. Speaking of which, the mayor has sent me, and other people have sent me, several sites of either dumped brush or trash. Some of that we've already, I wish I could remember the street it was. There's one, let's see. It's not that one. It's the one where when you drive, if you keep driving, you'll be in the back of Lucky's Chinese store. Which street is that?
John Street.
Mary Street, I think it's Mary Street. So for years, you couldn't see the hot fire hydrant that was there. We cleared that up last week.
Oh, yeah.
So we're prioritizing, because there was a couple messes, we're prioritizing fire hydrants and public safety for the cleanups. So that was done. I got pictures. I can send it to everybody so you can see what's been cleaned up. And this will continue because we're in that season. Now that the transitional aid application has been submitted to the Department of Community Affairs, which ensures us to get critical state funding, the CFO's office is going to move forward with a few things that we want to make sure we get done. So one is the procurement card, which we've been talking about for a while. We will have to get, council actually has to approve an ordinance on this first, because the procurement card has a lot of rules attached to it because of waste, fraud, and abuse that's happened in the past. So you'll see that in the coming weeks. We'll discuss it in governance. Easy Pass, we're this close to having it in hand. We also have a policy on that in order to avoid abuse with that. Sean Smith's engineer company, Erica, myself, we are in the process of ordering all the stuff for the park now that the weather is better. And Mr. Smith is 98% finished the bid specifications for the basketball court. Those bid specifications will be shared, and then that work will, at this point, it's likely to occur reasonably, and I wish it happened sooner, but May or early June, that work will get done on the court itself.
I would like to be a part of that delivery process.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, keep me informed.
Well, I think I put you an email today about that, and if not, I'll forward it to you.
I'll double check.
Okay. And this is somewhat boring, but it's important. We get a lot of questions about how permits work in this borough. We get it from contractors, we get it from landlords at times. They get confused on whose responsibility is what. We need to clarify this language on the website. But some of the folks that have to get stuff done have not been able to get utilities shut off. They've hit a wall. They think they're being told that the borough is responsible for it. We have a very tiny responsibility in that. But what we are doing, because this is why Wawa is slowed down, it's actually slowing down work on certain things. We're working on streamlining those processes. So as my mom would say, the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. We're improving those processes for people. You'll see updates on the website. And talk about that. And the only other thing, there's some the mayor and I had a conversation about this last week. There's some specific issues that some of you have brought to our attention about some severe issues that we have. We are continuing to review our strategy and to make sure we're getting the best legal advice, make sure we have the right tools. If we don't have an ordinance, presenting the ordinance to make sure we're dealing with these issues. If you might see a house or a situation looks terrible and you might think it's a simple fix, but then we look into it and we realize we've opened Pandora's box and it's not a 2-step process, it's a 10-step process. So, and it takes patience because you might not visually see anything until step 5 or 6. And right now we're on 3, 4, and 5, getting closer to when you actually see the bad property get knocked down, the person fined, the person held accountable. You know, people get 10-day notices. That's sometimes because of work schedules that turns into 14 days, it goes to court. I'm now getting a report to see what we've learned is that most fines are $124. I'm not sure where that number comes from. But we are seeing penalties and for some of the violations that we've seen. And we're going to be continually aggressive in giving repeat summons for the worst violators until it gets cleaned up.
Questions? So a lot of people move out of places here and they put their couches, their mattresses, and they sit them out there in the house. Carney's Point doesn't pick them up, rightfully so, because there needs to be an orange sticker on them. What do we do in that instance?
So what my landlord did was, until I had everything cleaned up when I moved, until I had everything cleaned up the way I was supposed to do, he didn't give me my security deposit. And if I did anything that was going to cost him money, I'm like telling myself here, I didn't clean my basement, I didn't clean the garage out fully. So he said, I'm gonna give you half your security deposit. And when you clean out the rest of the garage, you'll get the rest of your security deposit. I mean, what am I gonna do? I have my butt over there, my little weak arms pulling the rest of the stuff out the garage, getting it out because I wanted the rest of my security deposit. So we may have to send a message to the landlords because the landlord puts it on the tenant, right? That's what happens. The landlord says, hey, it's not my fault. I wanted this person to clean it up too. But the landlord has to communicate to the tenant that there are consequences for it. It's not a perfect solution between the newsletter and other things. We also just have to do a mass communication to people and let them know what the rules are. Rich Rivera was driving around this weekend and then he saw some of the violations. We forward that information to code enforcement so that people can get their and the problem with this is that some of these things require a 10-day notice, but it almost doesn't make sense to give a 10-day notice to a tenant that's not even there anymore. So we do have to be creative and identify.
The ordinance says either, it says either one, right?
No, what I'm saying is if you moved out, right, and then you left a bunch of trash.
It's either or.
Yes.
Either the tenant or the landlord or both.
So that's the long-term solution. What about the immediate solution? Can we
Goes
just,
to the landlord.
Yeah.
okay, but some of these landlords don't reply back quickly. So for example, there's a mattress on Delaware Avenue. That couch sat there for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I know when you go to Carney's Point to get orange stickers, it goes by your home, right?
Right.
So in that instance, I know one time you and Rich actually bought stickers out of your own pocket and went around sticking them on things. Like we need an immediate solution for that. Because while we're sending notices to landlords, the stuff is still sitting there.
Well, sorry, you tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think the most severe thing we can do is, which we've had to do at times, is we clean it up ourselves and we send the invoice to the landlord. And the landlord doesn't pay it within if the landlord doesn't pay it within a certain amount of days, then that bill becomes a tax lien. Yeah, lien against the property. And Jen Kay of Carney's Point, our tax collector, and we talked about this. She's made the process as easy as it's not going to be that hard once we do that.
We need to update our ordinances to say that, or our processes to say.
I'm not
Our
sure.
processes are intact right now.
Yeah.
that.
What I would say is, and I know, what I would say is, continue to send the complaints our way so we can document it. We have to, for several reasons, we have to document the code enforcement cited it. So we have to make sure we lined our ducks up where they're, we can't just clean it up without giving the person proper notice first and giving them the opportunity to do so.
And that's part of the problem when you're talking about an immediate solution in order to comply with what we need to be able to do in order to hold legally accountable. There's a process. Now, the problem with that is you will have stuff sitting out there unsightly for the time period that we do that. But that's the problem.
But can we give a deadline for the immediate cleanup on our part? Can we say like a week, 2 days?
Yeah, we give a 10-day notice, sure. Yeah.
So unfortunately, we have to look at it for 10 minutes.
I know.
Well, not necessarily, Madam Mayor. What we did very successfully, and what I would suggest as another approach is let's be preventive, let's be proactive. This past weekend, the first of the month just happened to fall on, and there were 4 moving trucks that were in the different neighborhoods moving people out. So immediately raised some issues for us as the police department. We're open 24/7, so we get to see all this playing out live. So one of the issues is that some of these folks, they don't have COs to move in. So we're taking note of that. The other thing is you have a part-time code enforcement officer who's specifically here on Saturdays and Sundays. So we immediately reach out to him and alert him about these issues. Then there's other things. There was one house on Pittman Street where I personally went over and they were carrying out a refrigerator. And I said, do you need a hand with that? And they're like, no, we got it. Okay. What's all this other stuff here on the sidewalk? Well, that's garbage. I go, okay, well, you putting that in the truck and taking it with you? No, why would we do that? That was the answer. I said, because it's garbage and it can't stay there. Went to the back of the truck, gave them 25 garbage bags, it's gone. So we got to stay on top of this as it's playing out so that we don't run into these issues, Mayor, where we're seeing it linger for weeks and weeks upon time, et cetera, et cetera. Everything was placed in those bags and now they're gone. So that was a success story. And then people started talking to us, they're getting more engaged, we're getting out of the cars and we're helping out with them. The mattresses, Mayor, that were on the sidewalk are no longer on the sidewalk because they were put in someone's driveway. So if you want to get into your driveway, now you're gonna have to get out and move the mattress. And maybe you could go down to Carney's Point, pick up.
I like the way you think.
Just sad, so.
Question, so, because while you're talking, that just made me think something. Board of Health, where are we with that? I know we had 2 people that wanted to be on it, and I know you have been, Councilwoman Mincy, we have been trying to put that together for a while. We have been talking about,
We never heard of them.
from who?
I just had the same 2 people and that was it. So
We can start with those 2 people though, right?
we can.
Okay. All right, so can you put that together?
Okay.
Yeah, we might as well start with the same 2 people, and then there's a couple other people that reached out that showed interest in serving on boards. So I'll contact those individuals and see if they want to serve on the board of health as well.
I have one question. Were we able to get that money back from JIF for the employee incentives?
We are likely to, we're working on that.
All right, moving on to the finance officer report.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, before we go further, did Sean ever answer as far as where that the one cannabis company wanted to open up on Main Street as far as the address? Okay.
He's looking it up right now.
Oh,
All
and
right, thank you.
we're gonna answer my question whenever.
Okay, so it's One Faith Wellness will be at Block 57, Lot 1. No, I'm just kidding. 166, 166-168 West Main Street. And they are cultivation and manufacturing, meaning they grow it and they bag it, or jar it, or pouch it.
So that's the old dentist office on the corner of Oak? Just so in case anyone's wondering which building.
Down the riverfront.
Yes. Oh, what? Dentist office?
Dr. Corsi? Yeah.
The doctor's office on Oak Street.
That's old doctor's office.
Yeah.
All right, we, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So this is what is new in finance. The introduced budget document along with supporting documentation was uploaded into the FAST system. The user-friendly budget worksheet was uploaded into the FAST system on March 31st. The transitional aid application along with appendix A through M and supporting documentation were emailed to the division on March 31st and the morning of April 1st. Hard copies of all the documents should be delivered to the division on Monday. That would have been this past. Resolution paying off special emergency notes for revaluation. Earlier, council passed a resolution. This resolution is to pay off a special emergency note, which is a type of debt. The payment of this note further advances the borough's mission to pay off debt and to continue to improve our bond rating. The office of the CFO thanks the mayor and council for their support. That is all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Walker.
I'm sorry, not to go backwards in time also, but Sean, is there any update on the Wawa project?
Yes, there is. Should
I mean, if you'd like to,
Can you give a quick summary?
Yeah, it's a quick summary. It's the engineering company and Wawa are going back and forth with an escrow account. And that's pretty much what's holding it up. And it's between Remington and Verdict and Wawa at this point. So I'm in these emails and it's like a tennis match, seeing them go back and forth.
To answer your question temporarily, Mr. Carter? Councilman Carter?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I have something to add to that, which has nothing to do with us, but did anybody see the sign out across from Roman Pantry? It says Wawa coming soon.
No.
No.
It's where they it's where Carney's Point turned down a Home Depot.
Okay. Nope, I didn't see it.
I was just curious if they,
All right. Fire chief report. Do we have a fire chief report?
No, he said he has no report.
How about the EMS captain report?
She said, we're doing our usual. We had 80 calls in March. And they have a lot of students working to pass the EMT test, which is next month.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Mr. Charlie, do we have an attorney report?
sure, just briefly, to just follow from some of the things that we talked about earlier, Mayor and Council. What I've been trying to do with Mr. Brown is to provide legal updates and protocols for how we perform some of these tasks that we've been talking about. In other words, we've gone through a step-by-step provision of a protocol for how we deal with demolitions. We've done step-by-step protocols for the responsibilities of the individual officers, such as the zoning officers and code enforcement officers. And we'll be providing all of those things so that we can put together systems that I talked about. So we really can start to hold these other people accountable. We can't hold anybody accountable unless we have the systems to be able to hold them accountable. And the systems really are based on the protocol directives of how that gets done. And then the second part of that, which is out of my purview, but the council will have to consider, will be personnel for doing those things. But that's what we have been working on. Surprisingly, the ordinances of this municipality are not as deficient as we might think they are. It really is a matter of the enforcement mechanisms behind them. So that's what we're working on moving forward with. Also, we have some things to deal with the Public Works Committee because we are trying to get together a program for our shared service agreements, because we do have more than one that we talk to committee about. And that's all I have this time.
Thank you. All right, circling back to the police director report. Mr. Rivera.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Just 3 issues real quick. Talking about crime statistics. We did the end of March monthly report, and we compared it to March of last year. And burglaries have decreased 400%. Criminal mischief is down 33%. Instances of domestic violence are down 33%. Car stops are up just a few ticks.
The car stops.
In below review. Property checks have more than doubled over last year. Shots fired are down 50% compared to the same month last year. And thefts are up six instances last year, 10 this year. But I'd like to credit the officers for being very proactive, engaging a lot more in the community. They're doing a fantastic job. We're getting a lot of compliments. I'm going to give you one example where we had some individuals break through the cinder block wall of an establishment and go inside to steal some things. The officers met with the owner, talked about what had taken place, gave him some crime prevention tips, told him how to fix up the wall so that the burglars wouldn't return. I spent some time out there as well. After we left, the neighbor came up and provided some information. So now we can focus in on the suspects. So I was very pleased to see that this engagement with the community is working and people are contributing and getting more involved in instances where they could prevent issues. And in that particular case, we were actually told that a neighbor saw the individuals looking to do what they were going to do and say, hey, don't mess around here. We're not about that in this town. So you just get on your way and leave here. So that's very positive as well. And then on Sunday night, our officers were alerted about an individual that was wanted in an attempted murder case in the next county over. So a description was provided. We knew the make and model of the vehicle. The officers, these 2 particular officers are very active. They drive about town. And they saw a person who matched the description coming out of a convenience store and waited and then was able to apprehend this individual. So this young man, it's his 3rd alleged incident where he's involved in a shooting. And hopefully he doesn't get out anytime soon while the case is pending. So I wanted to report that to you. The officers did a fantastic job. And I'll take any questions.
Car thefts.
Vehicle thefts? Dealing strictly with the stolen cars or just theft overall?
Stolen cars.
Stolen cars?
It seems to slow down.
They have, and I didn't pull that for the report because it seemed like it wasn't something that sent up a flag
Whatever
for
that
us.
gang was in Delaware.
It stopped.
Guess that stopped.
Well, Councilwoman, that gang happened to pick on a congresswoman that was close to the president of the United States, and they
Same
brought
one. Really?
They
Say
brought,
what?
the FBI got involved in that, so that's why things have kind of slowed down. Just shows you how close we are to Philadelphia and Wilmington, because those criminals migrate over here.
Are we looking for anybody else with the helicopter flying around?
That I can't comment on, but I can tell you that we're actively working with other police departments on a particular issue that people have
I
been
don't think
asking.
you could, but I thought I mentioned it because I heard it. I even went out back. It went that way, then it came closer to the house, so I was trying to read the side of it.
Is there something we should know, Ms. Smith?
Should have really helped in the grass. That's all right. As long as they're looking.
Is that all you have?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, mayoral comments. So there's so much work to be done, as we are all aware. We all live here. We've lived here for years. We know what needs to change. We can see all the things that are wrong on the outside, but in order to fix what's wrong on the outside, you have to fix what's out of order on the inside. So I know that we all grow impatient, and especially us up here who know, wow, we gotta wait for this approval, we gotta talk to this person, this has to be done, we need to do this, we need to do that. And it gets frustrating. And it gets frustrating because we want things to move fast. But with all that being said, we faced a lot of adversities. I've surely faced adversities during my time as mayor, but I am pleased to say that through those adversities, we've been able to bulldoze through those adversities, and we've accomplished lots of things. First thing, I want to congratulate our police department with great effective leadership. Despite being short a few officers, they did not go over their 2021 budget as it has years prior, and continues to solve crimes of few that choose violence over peace. So, good job to you and to Fred.
Absolutely, correct.
Yes.
Not so much you.
Next accomplishment, our budget has the biggest surplus it has had in over 20 years. Giving the state confidence in our leadership, in 2018, we had a deficit of over $266,000, which taxpayers have had to pay back in the next year's taxes. For 2021, we have $709,000 in surplus, something we've never had before. We are improving our financial condition. This means we did not spend more money than we had. I am leading a borough that is changing its reputation in Trenton, all over Salem County, and throughout the state of New Jersey. Next up, accomplishment number 3. We raised, as I've mentioned this over the past year, we've raised over $450,000 to demolish vacant properties and to redo Barber Avenue Park with the support of Governor Phil Murphy. I just want to publicly thank him. Last year we had some events, one-on-one basketball, and we had basketball, I think it was with I forgot what it was called. Shoot for Change, yes, Ms. Fowler's event. So this year, I'm happy to announce that we'll be having those events on a brand new basketball court, which I will be happy to share what that's gonna look like. It's gonna look very nice. It's slow, as Mr. Brown mentioned, we have to go out, we gotta make purchases, go out for bids and things like that, but it will be built. Next up, we've potentially raised a lot of money for the borough in this property auction. There's just some things we have to work out. We've got to get the contracts in order, requirements, things like that, make sure that we do things the right way so that the folks who have purchased these properties will rehab them in the time allotted and make our borough look better. We are closing on these properties in the coming weeks, and we will have the final numbers. But for now, know that we have lessons learned from the past. We will require people to live in the homes within a year or to build on lots within a year. Next up, in October, during a nor'easter, we helped displaced residents get to hotels and worked with our engineer, legal team, and Triad, our grant writers. We are being rewarded for our efficiency and focus on issues that affect you and your families. So for another update that has not been shared with the public yet, I just want to read a little verbiage from the letter that we received from Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who is also Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And I quote, "I am pleased to inform you that Penns Grove Borough will receive a small cities grant of $345,600. This award will provide funds for upgrades and improvements to the Strawn Lane pump station. We've got lots of issues when it comes to our stormwater, but piece by piece, we'll, as we find the money, we'll go through the process and we'll get it repaired. It's not gonna happen overnight, but we are working very hard to improve our situation in the borough as far as that's concerned.
Did you
So-
forward that letter?
Sure. I thought that sharing. Okay, sure what. So
Yes, you don't believe it's true.
that's all I have. Let me see, hold on. Okay, yep, that's it for now. So thank you everyone for listening to me. All right, moving on to appointments. Greg Martin to the Penns Grove Planning Board, unexpired term of Jeanette Jackson, class board member. Oh, I skipped something, everyone. Oh, okay. Also, new business. Personnel policies and procedures manual.
That actually is not going to be new business because we're still working on that. I had the opportunity to meet with Councilwoman Worley by telephone. She had some very, very good suggestions with regard to that. We've adopted some of those into the personnel manual. So what we'd like to do is to hold that for our work session next meeting so that we can have a discussion with everyone on this. The one thing I would ask the council to consider with regard to new business, and I apologize because this should have been sent over to the council. It was this matter that came before, I think it was submitted already, a cannabis application for Generations OG LLC, and the other one is for
Johnson and Johnson.
Yes, okay. And that's JAWSON and JAWSON. Both of those, I believe, have come before the council committees. And I apologize, but we did not have the opportunity to, somehow they were not attached to what was sent over to the clerk. But they are seeking resolutions of support for their ventures. They've gone through the process, and I would ask the council to consider them and to allow a new business resolution walk on with regard to those two issues, because they have to be done now in order for them to consider their application within the statutory time period. So I would ask the council, if you would please, to consider a motion to bring resolutions of support for two entities, one of which is Generations OG LLC, the other of which is Johnson and Johnson, both of which have been considered and I guess been approved by the committee. So if that is the case, I would ask for, Mary, you can ask for a motion to bring on a business walk-on resolution for that purpose.
May I have a motion to bring on a walk-on resolution for new business? Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. May I have a second?
We're all muted.
Second.
Council's muted.
Oh, they're muted.
Yeah, the council members.
Council members, I need a second.
I said second already.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Carter. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
We need discussion too. At what point, okay, well, I just had a question. At what point are we gonna limit the number of entities that are coming into town?
Did you want me to answer?
No, I want to answer. So if these two are supported tonight, this will be 12 and 13. These will be, it will add up to 13. It is almost impossible that all 13 of these are going to make their way through to the final process for various reasons. So it's almost like if you want 4, you have to, as long as they do what they're supposed to do, which they did, and I forwarded this to everyone.
No, we don't have it yet.
Yeah, and I sent this to everybody last week.
Really?
The Johnson & Johnson one?
Yeah, look up JAWNSON.
Friday.
No, we only have one.
Yes.
I
But anyway, the reason why this is important for this deadline is because at a certain point, the state's going to stop accepting application. They're going to issue a certain amount of licenses
Like
per
30 something.
category, right, and then stop. And then the other thing is we don't have much more land left, Ms. Scarpese. So I don't think we're going to even be able to get to the number 20 for applicants because there's no more. We're running out of space. These last few are lucky
This
they didn't
last
found
one
somewhere.
that I asked you about, that's in the Marina District.
Yeah.
And I thought that when we passed the original resolution, we eliminated that for zoning.
No,
No?
it was Marina 1 and 2 are included. Which if it wasn't, you wouldn't have. You would. I want to say over half are probably in that district at this point.
I'm not happy about using the riverfront for manufacturing and cultivation.
Right. Well, one way to look at it is that these buildings have been vacant for over a decade, and I had people since my first week here. Then not a week goes by that somebody doesn't inquire about a property. Hey, I want to buy this from the borough. I want to put a business here, or whatever.
I know, our hands are tied.
But in that
for the
area, these are the only folks that have expressed any interest in being in those buildings.
Our hands are tied for the riverfront though because of the lawsuit. So
Well, if the vision that the mayor has described comes to fruition, you'll go down Main Street and there'll be some businesses that are kind of unidentified. They're doing their thing. If you so, let's just say all of them get approved. I think there would be one that Ms. Marley wants is applying for. What building is it?
Willis Hardware.
Okay, Willis Hardware.
again, at the riverfront.
Yeah.
So that probably is not the highest use for that property.
But if there was, like, a lot of people say, like, I get people that want a lot of stuff from Virginia Avenue all the time. People want something from Virginia Avenue, up here, Broad and Main. I hear it all the time. I'm not saying that everybody's interested in something that's telling me, but I talk to the real estate community as well. And it's in no one's interest for these buildings to sit vacant for another decade. And something has to spur that development. And in this case, we have a unique opportunity to not only get a person to occupy it, but also people who have projected revenue of $3 million, which would bring in a few $100,000 in tax revenue.
Have an extended discussion about this, but
Yeah, this can go on for hours.
the riverfront is something special that we have. No one else has an empty lot like that. I don't know, probably up the coastal Trenton. And that's just it's not the highest use for that property. And we can't market it right now because of the lawsuit from Mr. Fisher. So.
And that property's not owned by us anyway, is it?
No.
No, it's not.
No, none of these properties are, none of these properties are.
It's not
owned by the
ours,
borough.
okay. But we do have control over the zoning and the permitting in that area.
So the original motion is just to bring on this item as a new business item.
Yes.
So that's what.
And then we-
will be taking. Yes,
Okay.
to the point.
Roll call to bring this on. Councilman Carter,
Yeah.
Council President Morton,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilman Scarpese,
Yes.
and Councilman Worley.
Yes.
All right, all affirmed.
Now you'll need an additional motion to approve those individuals because there was new business, so you had to bring it on. So you'll need an additional motion to approve those two individuals, Johnson and Johnson, and Generations OG LLC for resolutions.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Carter. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Councilwoman Worley. That would be.
Or if you like discussion.
Any discussion? Okay.
No, it's-
Madam Clerk, can you do roll call? Councilman Carter, Councilman Carter,
Yes. Yes.
Council
Yes.
President. Thank you. Council President Morton,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilman Scarpese,
Yes.
and Councilman Worley.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes. Thank you.
And may I just add one additional thing, just because you're approving all of these individuals, I think Mr. Brown was pretty clear, but I just want to reiterate that all of these individuals, number one, will not necessarily get through the process, but more importantly, simply because you approve them at this stage does not mean that you have to or are bound to do anything with them at this point. So just want to make sure that's clear.
Really quick, I forgot two things to mention during my mayoral comment. We also got $413,000 to upgrade an existing structure and turn it into a community center. So shout out to Senator Booker and Menendez for watching us and saying we're doing a good job. So I'm proud of that. And then also we had an interest in bringing a grocery store here. So it was very promising. The details and everything still has to be worked out, but I did want to share that with everyone. So we will more than likely have a grocery store really soon. So more to come on that.
Are you able to say which company that is as far as grocery store?
No, not at this time, but we will soon.
Do you have the?
Okay.
You have the building for the community center?
We're still looking at structures.
Oh, okay. I saw that, but I thought that was the why that they.
All right, going into public session. Everyone, if you want to speak, you will need to say your name and your address. And I'm asking everyone to take 3 minutes because it's 8:44 and I want to get something to eat. So I think we all want to. All right. Anyone from the public have any comments?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name's Steve Dennis, 304 State Street. Some of you may know me. I've lived here for 35 years. My property is right next to the Strong's Lane Ditch and Pumping Station. I've seen a lot over the years. I've seen a lot that has not been done and promised. I appreciate the fact that we got the grant that came through, and Councilwoman Scarpese and Mr. Brown, I appreciate the update on the repairs. However, a couple things. I know, Mayor, you told me that the engineer looked at the sluice gate down there. The fact is, he thought there was nothing wrong with it. The sluice gate is broken. The level rises and lowers with the tide. that can't happen unless a sluice gate is not operating properly. When that doesn't operate properly, the pumps run more. That could have led to the problem with the pump that was removed on February 4th, which, by the way, is 2 months ago, and we're just getting around to get those repairs approved and in progress. That's unacceptable. We can't have 2 months go by or a month since the bill was sent to the borough, and now we're just getting the funds approved.
Unfortunately, Mr. Dennis, I understand your
Yeah.
point. And it's just, stuff just takes so long. And then in addition to that, with our limited staff, I don't know if you're aware, we have 5 employees and everybody's wearing multiple hats. And even our council members, you know, and myself, I'm the executive branch, they're the legislative. We even have to jump in and kind of wear multiple hats to try to help. So things take long, but I know I spoke to you about a committee and we will be talking soon about, because you're very knowledgeable. And I think that you have some valuable, you know, you can help move things along as.
Well, and as I said, when you first took office, we met, and I'm willing to help with the borough in any way I can with my experience. The other piece for that drainage dish is the trash. Who's responsible for removing that trash? There's no accountability there. I don't know if it's Carney's Point. I'm not sure who it is, if it's the state, I don't know. But the fact is, there's been a tire floating around in there and logs for months. The trash has not been cleaned up since the river flood, an act of God, of course. We can't do anything about that. But all that trash came in there, never been touched. It's now 6 or 7 months. I could get in a little boat, go up and down there and pick the trash up myself, and I'm about ready to do that. And it would take less than a day. Why can't somebody do that?
Well, if you do decide to do that, thank you very much. Is it?
I know Ms. Scarpazi's itching to get in here.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a question with Carney's Point.
Yeah.
Because the SMG things, they claim it's a contract. That's the problem. But Steve, I will take your number and I'll
Yeah.
see what I can get done. If we have to hire somebody, I guess we have to hire somebody because we're coming into spring. You know,
Yeah.
that's like the worst time. Spring and fall is the worst time. So if you want to write the number and we'll talk.
Okay, all right, I will. And just one other thing. The pump will not be back and repaired for 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks to repair the pump. That means we're going through the rainy season with one pump. And I talked to the street department up in Carney's Point. I said, well, what's your backup plan? Well, we don't know. We don't know. That's not acceptable either.
I know.
Council needs to hold, and mayor, you need to hold Carney's Point Street Department accountable. Now, we could get an inch of rain tonight or 2 inches or whatever. I guarantee you at some point this spring, that's going to flood. And it's not only my property, South River Walk, it's the apartments and the church that are going to get flooded again. Time's up. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you for listening.
But I will,
I'm all for withholding money from them. If they don't do their.
I just want to do it.
Mr. Dennis.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll get some availability from you next week.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else from the public?
Again, Delaware Drive. I live on Delaware Drive and it gets flooded too from Strong's Lane. And about 4 years ago, the sluice gate and the area inside the box was completely redone. And it was supposed to be fitted with grease fittings, so the sluice gate would go up and down pretty easily. I don't know if that actual part was actually done, but that whole box was repaired. When he said that it's broken, now I understand why the street got flooded. that
Lou, are you talking about Mill Street or Strong's Lane?
Strong's Lane. He's lives right next to Strong's Lane.
Yeah.
And those pumps were replaced 4 years ago, and they were $1 million. $1 million. $1 million is like a kick in the bucket when it comes to those pumping stations. And because they have not been maintained, now we have a broken pump at Strong's Lane. They probably just didn't oil the pump. Those pumps are pretty resilient and are made to pump out water continuously. So, and I know we have no pumps at Delaware Avenue now. I don't know if that pump's ever been replaced or a rebuild pump has been done. And at Mill Street, we have no ditch to bring the water to the pumps. And then the sluice gate is broken at Mill Street too. And we're supposed to be talking to the mosquito commission about looking at that sluice gate, I know.
No, actually, it's just for the ditch.
Just
They're
for the
not, they're
ditch,
not
yeah.
gonna deal with the sluice gate, just gonna deal with the ditch.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we got a ditch dug out there, I mean, it's like a foot deep now. 4 foot deep was what it should be, but when it comes to like taking the trash out of like Strong's Lane, I wouldn't recommend anyone going to that ditch because it'll take a rope and 3 firemen to pull you out of there. And maybe some bite marks from turtles. So, and maybe snakes too, I don't know. But I know there used to be a lady there that rented from Orlando, and she went in there and she told me, and when I was on council, I said, please don't go in there, call someone.
Yeah, and
And she was cleaning it out, and I went,
I know because there's wildlife in there,
oh,
that now we have to deal with the Department of Environmental Protection too, when it comes to.
but she was actually going in there and cleaning out the trash in the ditch,
Actually,
right
they're-
at the
the
gate.
county's dealing with that.
The county's dealing with that.
So, and I asked her, please don't go in there. I don't want to see your name in the picture. Is what I told her.
The issue is our contract doesn't require Carney's Point to maintain those things.
Yeah, but the thing is with Carney's Point, they have been doing this. How can they not do it now? And that's a legal issue there.
Yeah, we're working on.
I mean, that's a,
As Councilwoman Scarpese mentioned, Public Works is having a meeting to talk about.
that's a legal issue. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, is there anyone else from the public?
Well, I was gonna make a suggestion. Greg Martin, Spruce Street. Something you were talking about earlier, you and Mr. Brown. It was just about, basically, I think Ms. Scarpese is the one that runs the Clean Communities
No.
program. You got switched. Who's running?
Brown.
So Mr. Brown is running Clean Communities, correct? Okay, well, I don't care who's running it. I'm just, the suggestion I have is.
Councilwoman Worley has clean communities.
You have Clean Community?
No, I don't, Mr. Brewer.
No, I'm the clean communities coordinator.
Oh, so it must
I
have
mean,
changed?
you want to.
I think that's no, go for it.
I'm like, you want it?
Go
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
I don't care, and I really would, I just a suggestion because I seen you guys talking about it. I know last year, and it's been in the past, I just hope we will do a better job with the program as far as picking streets. A lot of times we're picking streets. I'm not gonna say they're not that bad, but we have more pressing streets that could be done. Sort of what you were saying about the couches, like I'm just gonna use, for example, we have the old car place in the Broad and Walnut. When we get some of these, I'm just gonna use the lack of, I'm just gonna say the football program or whoever applies for it. sometime instead of maybe doing a street, we could pick an area such as that. It would save the town. Say again?
You can't.
Why
You
not?
can't go in public, you can't go in private property.
That's not private when the township owns it.
We don't own it.
It's owned by somebody else.
So I'm just using that for example. We do own some stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking about the stuff we own.
Yeah, you're right.
So because that's private, what are we doing about that then, since you bring that up?
Through
Sending
enforcement.
notes on what they should be doing.
Okay, who owns it?
Mr. Price.
Somebody in Delaware said.
Okay, well, the things that we do own, and the problems that we have, sort of like the couches and stuff like the mayor was talking about. Could we do it, right? Use that and then try to recoup the money later on, from the landlords or whatever have you. I'll be willing to volunteer my time and my trailer if you would go about it in a different way than we have done it in the past. I mean, walking up Main Street or having a group pick up some trash, I mean, that's fine and dandy, but you got places like Tyrone Avenue, when you ride past there, it looks like Beirut. I mean, I just think we need to pick.
I just want to say this, two things. Just on Tyrone Avenue. Believe it or not, we sent a group over there. Do you know another group came and told us that they didn't even go over there and do it? They didn't want to go because the people was out there. And I said, you should have called because Rich was working with us.
Yeah.
He could have run around there with you. So that you're right. We sent a group. We sent a group over there to that street and they just nixed it off. And I told them about it because they wanted to get paid.
Well, if we gonna run the program, we also gotta follow up. You don't get paid.
Yep.
If you're not doing, I'm just saying it's more pressing streets than walking up and down Main and Broad Street all the time, every time we got the thing.
A couple comments. We did every street that belongs to the borough of Pensgrove last year. Broad and Main are county streets. We also did those and we had the county tax for those streets. But when we did the 3 weekends, we did every street in Pensgrove.
I'm gonna tell you, you didn't. I'm gonna have to disagree with you because right after it was done, I rode through some streets and I said, damn, why they ain't do this street? Like, because I ride around just about on every street here, and I'm not putting the program down. I'm just saying, I think we can make better use of the program. That's all I'm saying.
It's like you said, Tyrone Avenue, they come and told us that it wasn't done, and we looked on the list and we seen who it was. I called them, and me and Irene went around there and started picking it up. And oh no, you don't get paid for that because you're right, they did. They thought they were getting away with it, and no, that's.
I mean, when the weekends that you do pick, I would be willing to volunteer my time and my services and my whatever I can do.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Attorney Jarvis make me think it's 4 in the morning because that's the same alarm I usually get. Oh, one thing, Mr. John, I'm sorry, I know my time is up, but I wanna say something to Councilman Carter because I don't wanna get your title wrong. Patrolman Hempel and Police Director, Mr. Rivera, I actually talked to the mayor. But John is part of recreation, so that's why I'm mentioning it. He's very interested. I think it's May 7th. He's gonna be getting a flyer. They want to do a fishing contest down at the river, something different for the community. And if anybody's seen the picture on the page, the big fish Michael Gear caught today, I don't know how big it was, but Mr. Hemp will be heading it up and he'll be getting with Councilman Carter and a few other people to try to get that set up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Councilwoman Missy, Councilman Ward, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Our next regular meeting will be held on April 19th at 6:30 PM. Same time, same place. Thank you very much.
I didn't get my question. I didn't really get, she didn't stop, right? She always do me wrong.
It's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. Just so.
20. Man, I didn't get my question. I'm ready. Oh, wait.